So we're on. Right, all I'm going to do, I'll do a brief introduction. So I'm going to run through a quick presentation just to introduce to you guys. I know you've seen the newsletter and the announcement. Typical, we have one extra person just join. Yeah, I know you've seen the announcement. So what I wanted to do was just hold a quick webinar just to explain to people what the apprenticeship pathway looks like, why it was proposed, how it can help or affect you guys as training providers or cycle training providers, and then welcome any questions. I know you're probably going to have quite a few questions, and I'll do my very best to answer. If we could just stay on mute for now, because it can become, especially Zoom, isn't the best when you've got multi people on. So if you could stay on mute for the duration of the presentation, and then I'll open up for questions at the end. So if you note down any questions, it might be best if you just pop up your hand if you have a question, and then we'll come to you at the end. And like I say, I'll do my very best to answer them the best I can. If there's any questions I'm not able to answer right now, what I'll do is I will note them down. And then I'll get back to those individuals as soon as I possibly can, either via email. I have everyone's email through their registration anyway. If anyone's got any questions and doesn't feel confident enough to open up their camera, their mic, sorry, and speak out loud, feel free to put it in the chat box. I've got my colleague, Jodie, who's going to monitor the chat box, and she will note down all the questions for me. And like I say, if there's any questions that, that pop up during the duration of the presentation, I'll do my best to answer them at the end. But fingers crossed, it'll be a comprehensive enough presentation, so it should answer quite a few questions. I'm just going to share my screen. If anyone has a problem seeing the screen, please let me know as soon as you can. But you should be able to see my presentation now. I'm just going to pop it on presenter view soon, so you should just see the presentation slide. So my name's Rob. I manage an organisation called First Step Training. We are a training provider that delivers sports qualifications, apprenticeships, and we have done for quite a long time now. We have a cycle training provider as part of our organisation. So we are confident with the industry itself and how it works, but we know that there hasn't been, or not that we're aware of, a cycle instructor apprenticeship pathway previously. And what we've done is we've put together a proposal that's hopefully going to help improve the training provided to young people trying to get them into the industry. So to give you an idea, we've put together a proposal. So First Step Training would like to work with the Bikeability Trust and cycle training providers across the country to introduce a new cycle instructor apprenticeship pathway. The reason we're presenting it to you guys now before it's launched is just because we would like to get as much feedback as we possibly can, so that we can make the program as usable as possible for the apprentice, the training provider, and the Bikeability Trust. The proposal was created to have a substantial contribution towards the target of increasing the cycle training workforce by the projected 1,000 cycle instructors that is required to ensure that every child has and their family have access to cycle training by 2024, because I know that is a mission of the Bikeability Trust currently. First Step Training propose a tailor-made apprenticeship pathway suited perfectly to the cycle instructor job role, and it's designed to create a more well-rounded and diverse cycle instructor workforce. The apprenticeship itself will be made up of a few different elements. Okay, so the program will be 15 months long. That program is broken into two different sections. So the first section is a 12-month tutoring program where the apprentice will work with their tutor to develop the knowledge, skills and behaviour that's required to pass the apprenticeship successfully. The apprentices will then enter an endpoint assessment window, which is 3 months long, which is where an external organisation will come in and do the final assessment to say whether or not the apprentices successfully passed their program or not. Okay, the apprenticeship pathway will be made up of some different elements. So the main element for the apprenticeship pathway is the actual apprenticeship standard itself, and we are going to deliver the level 2 community activator coach apprenticeship standard. The reason we've chosen that is because the way apprenticeships are built now, they are built for industries and for job roles. Now, we know that British Cycling were one of the trailblazers. So when we're creating an apprenticeship standard, big employers come together, they design what they think is the ideal job role, and they say the knowledge, the skills and behaviours that need to come alongside that job role for it to be delivered successfully. Now, we know British Cycling, as a big employer in the industry, we're a trailblazer on the apprenticeship standard. So we know that it kind of works for the industry, which is why we selected it. Okay. Alongside that, we want to make it, like I said, as cycle specific we can. So we're going to introduce or deliver the level 2 award in instructor and cycle training course as part of the apprenticeship pathway. And we're also going to introduce some instructor specific or cycle instructor specific safeguarding, health and safety and E&D training. Now, we're working quite closely with the Bikeability Trust because we know this is quite hot on their topics just now. And what we don't want to do is just deliver generic safeguarding, health and safety and E&D training and it not be usable for the industry. So we want it to be as usable for the industry and as useful for the Bikeability Trust as possible. So we're going to design as best we can some safeguarding, health and safety and E&D training for the cycle instructor job role. We're also currently looking at adding some added value training to the apprenticeship standard itself. So stuff like bike maintenance and ride leaders. Now, there might be a couple of people on the call now who have pitched ideas to me, and I apologize for not getting back to them yet, but what we are doing is we're just weighing up our options, because when we're adding the added value training, it's really important that we don't add an element that isn't inclusive. So we need the extra added value training to be useful and accessible to people all over the country. So we don't just want to say, right, we've got bike maintenance training available, but you have to be on the south coast to get that bike maintenance training, because that then occurs travel cost, etc. So we need it to be something that's accessible for any apprentice that takes on the new apprenticeship scheme. The community activator coach, I touched on this before, but the level 2 community activator coach is the standard, and it's made up of a set of knowledge, skills and behaviours that all apprentices must acquire to achieve their apprenticeship successfully. What we've done is we've looked at all the knowledge, skills and behaviours alongside our cycle instructor professionals, who have confirmed that the knowledge, skills and behaviours can be achieved whilst working as a cycle instructor over the period of 12 to 15 months. So they can, I'll just admit somebody else. So they can be achieved on services or deliveries such as Bikeability delivery 1, 2 and 3 in schools themselves. If anyone takes part or has any delivery of pre-pedal or bike sessions, Rusty Riders, Bikeability Family or projects similar, women's only cycling sessions, Skyride, private clubs, anything like that. So anything that's added value that some cycle training providers might deliver. If anyone would like any more information on the knowledge, the skills and behaviours that are within the apprenticeship standard, there is a link on the presentation. I will send this presentation out on completion of tonight. It'll probably be Monday next week, as I'm on annual leave tomorrow and Friday, but I'll follow it up with this presentation, and it's got the link on there that takes you to the Institute of Apprenticeships website. All you need to do, click the link, it'll take you to the Community Activator Coach apprenticeship page, and that has all the knowledge, skills and behaviours listed for you to have a little look at to see whether, yes, we feel like we'll be able to, or someone working for us will be able to achieve those. What's really important to us is that this program benefits as many people as possible. Okay, so the first area is what benefits does it have for the Bikeability Trust, and why is it important that we have them involved? Well, we know that they're trying to recruit at least 1,000 plus instructors over the next 3 years, and hopefully this program is going to help do that. Okay, we're also working with them to standardize the training program for apprentices and instructors all across England, just like they're continually trying to improve and standardize the training that all cycle instructors have by introducing the level 2 that we know of. We're hopefully going to work towards increasing the diversity of the workforce, because we are aware that there is a lack of diversity in the cycle instructor training workforce just now. We're going to try and improve the standard of the workforce in general. So the more people that come through this program, the better it's going to be in the future for young people who are learning safe cycling. We're going to ensure that instructors get relevant safeguarding, E&D and health and safety training, and hopefully it'll help increase the number of ideas and innovative cycle projects for providers, which is always interesting. So we know that apprentices come up with fantastic ideas, and what we want to try and do is utilize them the best we can. They will be required to do a project during their apprenticeship, which will require them to come up with new ideas, which might turn into an increased or a new revenue stream. The bit that you guys are going to be really interested in is the benefits for cycle training providers. Okay, so first off, it's a cost-effective way of staffing. So there is a set amount that apprentices have to be paid, just like a minimum wage for normal employees. It is a little bit less, so it does work out with cost-effective staffing, and they do get continual training. It hopefully will help improve staff retention. We know that in the industry, there is a problem with the rotation of staff. It's just a hereditary problem within the industry. So what we're trying to do is try to provide training to keep people in the industry moving forwards. A current employer survey came out as a result of 74% of employers stated that apprentices tended to be more loyal and stick around longer than non-apprentices, which hopefully is a really positive sign. There is a financial incentive for any employers to help with employment costs. So this should interest most of you. So anybody who can employ an apprentice between the 1st of October this year and the 31st of January next year will be eligible for incentive. Now, they don't necessarily have to start their apprenticeship right then. They can start their apprenticeship all the way up until May, but they need to be employed by the 31st of January. If they are, then you are eligible for a £3,000 grant directly from the government as a thank you for investing in people when everyone's having such a difficult time due to COVID, etc. That £3,000 can be used for anything you want to use it on. So it can be used towards staff costs, because that will help initially to pay wages, because we know in the first 3 months before they can get through their level 2 cycle instructor training, they're not really going to be usable to you independently, but that should help cover the cost of their wages for the first 3 to 4 months, which should help the burden of employing a new person. Another thing to be aware of, which does come with some drawbacks, is if that person is between 16 to 18, you are eligible for an additional £1,000 for investing in young people. Now, I know straight away it'll have perked a few years up, because you can't do the level 2 award and instructor in cycle training until you're 18. We are working with the Bikeability Trust and First Support to see whether that can be reduced to 16, just for taking the course at least. Because the majority of other level 2 coaching courses in other industries are accessible for anyone who's 16 and above. So we're just trying to work out the logistics of how that would work and rolling it out. So I can't promise that that's going to happen, but it is something that's in discussion. Okay. It should help improve the onboarding experience for employers and the apprentices, because we'll do a full induction. And we know that inductions for employers can be tedious and can be difficult, especially with time constraints. I know a lot of employers in our industry are out delivering bikeability themselves, which comes with a problem. So we can help with that burden of doing the inductions, etc. The apprentice should be industry trained within 3 months, or at least up to task 11 on their level 2 within 3 months, which means they can deliver on your bikeability projects, and then hopefully they'll be fully passed within 5 months. You will have the opportunity to have a direct impact on the training for your new apprentice. So you will be asked for some help towards the delivery of just mentoring the apprentice to your standards, kind of a try before you buy, so you can help them understand, the new apprentice understand your policies, your procedures, how you work. So that should all be good over the 15 months. It will hopefully help develop a well-rounded workforce. Again, just like it is for the Bikeability Trust, it will increase, or should increase, the number of innovative new cycle projects, which will hopefully increase new revenue streams for you as a cycle training provider, and then improve the quality, increase the diversity of your workforce specifically. Some of the benefits for the apprentice: so it's an intensive training program to the national standard, so they should hopefully be nationally standard trained within 3 to 5 months. It's standardized training across the country. So for example, if we have someone who is being trained down on the south coast and they move to the north, there won't be a problem with transferring to a different cycle training provider. Hopefully the training should remain the same. It should help with being a more appealing career pathway due to the apprenticeship standard being a little bit more flexible. So we hope that everyone goes through the apprenticeship standard and wants to stay as a cycle instructor, but because we've introduced the community activated coach apprenticeship standard, it is usable and is transferable across the industry within the sector. So they might be able to find other job roles if that's what they wanted to do. Like all apprentices, it's an earn as you learn, which will be a benefit to apprentices. It comes with an added support network. So rather than just having an employer as their support network and their parents or family or whoever it might be, the training provider is also an additional support network for them. And then CV building is always a positive, because you get your apprenticeship standard, you get your level 2 employability qualification, basically, you'll get your safeguarding E&T, and health and safety training. You will get tons and tons of experience within the industry, so that'll look great on any young person's CV. Some of the challenges that we're going to face, and it's important to highlight these challenges so that we can, as an industry, try and overcome them. So the current employment method for a lot of cycle training providers we know is freelance. Unfortunately, if someone is employed freelance, they can't go on an apprenticeship standard and they can't draw down apprenticeship funding. So those people will have to be fully employed, which I know is a problem for some cycle training providers. The employment options on completion is also a challenge that we have, because what we want to do is we want to bring people into the industry as an apprentice and then at least have a viable employment option for them on completion. What we don't want to do is just become that conveyor belt of bringing in an apprentice, they do their 15 months, you let them go, you bring on someone else who's new, because that's not really helping the overall goal of bolstering the size of the workforce to help increase or help support the delivery and the demand of young people. Progression routes for training is also a problem. There isn't too many progression routes for cycle instructors on completion of the level 2. We know that there is the level 3 for developing cycle instructor trainers. That currently is the only one that we have, so that is a problem. But in the industry anyway, that is a problem there is, and it might be something we can look to address moving forwards. But right now, we've only got the level 2 to introduce. And then finally, we know that cycle equipment is expensive. So stuff like bikes and helmets and whatever other equipment they're going to need can be expensive. We would like to think that someone who's coming into the industry as a keen cyclist, we would like to think that they might have a bike and a helmet, but it might not be the case. So that is something that the apprentice and the employing organisation might need to consider. The cycle training provider commitment, so what you guys are committing to, there is a lot more detailed commitment statement that I think I've sent to a lot of people who've inquired or registered interest so far, just to have a little read through. But in a nutshell, as a training provider, you need to employ the apprentice through your PAYE scheme. You need to embrace the training and help manage the apprentice through the duration of their apprenticeship. You need to support the apprentice through the duration of the apprenticeship, ensuring that the work environment is suitable for gaining the experience and gathering the evidence towards their apprenticeship standard. What we don't want is someone just out washing bikes or following a team round or washing the van all the time. They need to be actually out assisting, helping deliver Bikeability so that they can acquire the skills and knowledge that's going to make them useful in the industry moving forwards. You need to pay any employer contributions in the agreed timescales. That's not applicable right now, so we don't need to worry about that too much. And then attend an employer induction with first step training prior to the apprentice commencement. We need to do that to make sure that you're fully aware of exactly what's going to happen throughout the training. We as an industry want to, and as First Step Training, want to promote collaborative working, which is why we've pitched it to the Bikeability Trust and why we're pitching it to you guys now and letting you guys know about it. We've also had communication with other RDCs previously. So First Step Training are always going to welcome and support in launching the apprenticeship in a way that is going to have the greatest positive impact on the industry and the apprentice themselves. We're happy to lead on a group to roll out the session, do some rollout sessions to support cycle training providers who might not have experience of having an apprentice on board before. We've got quite a lot of experience in delivering apprenticeships. So we've worked with lots of training providers, everyone from who's got lots of experience down to people who've never employed apprentices before. So we're happy to help support in that manner. This is a bit that might spark up the ears of some RDCs who have had to or who have invested in some of their staff for the delivery of the new level 2. So we would like to partner with some first support RDCs who have got qualified tutors and assessors on their staff to deliver some of the elements of the apprenticeship. This will help the RDC utilise their staff and hopefully increase revenue. Now, there are different levels to what level an RDC can come in and help, which I'm happy to discuss with them separately because I appreciate that's not going to be useful for everyone now. If we've got anyone or any RDCs who would like and is really keen to get involved in some of the delivery, whether that be the delivery on the level 2 or getting involved on delivery on the apprenticeship standard itself, I'm going to encourage you to contact me directly on my email. I'll also, like I said, I'll follow this up with the presentation from my direct email so they can get back to me on there to register their interest. Training will be provided for those RDCs because I appreciate that delivering an apprenticeship standard might be new to them. So we'll have full lesson plans, presentations, schemes of work for them to follow and a training program to help guide them through the delivery, because obviously the quality of that delivery will ultimately fall on First Step Training's head as the lead provider. And we have the ESFA and the government to answer to. And because of that, First Step Training will manage the quality assurance of the delivery of the tutor assessor throughout the program through lesson observations and observations of assessment, etc. Now, a really important section is just around the funding. And again, really important to have a quick think about this and how it will work for your organisation. So the funding for the proposed apprenticeship pathway will be provided by the Education and Skills Funding Agency for non-levy employers. Okay, so we draw that directly down from the ESFA, and that pays for the delivery of the apprenticeship. And for anybody who is a levy paying organisation, so some of the big councils we have, etc., their apprenticeship will be paid for through their levy pot, and those people who are on here will know what I'm talking about. First Step Training or a registered apprenticeship provider on ROAP, and we have a direct contract with the ESFA, which means we have the ability to draw down the funding from the ESFA to cover the cost of that training. Currently, there's no direct training cost for the apprentice, the training provider, or the trust. First Step Training will draw down the maximum funding of £6,000. That's what the government are saying the apprenticeship standard is worth. Now, that £6,000 has to cover all of the costs of the delivery, everything from the endpoint assessment cost, the cost of the level 2 award and instructor cycle training, and then the delivery of the apprenticeship over the 15 months. And then the funding will be, like I say, will be used to cover the full costs of the programme itself. And that, in a nutshell, is that. I appreciate I sometimes speak a little bit quickly, and I speak like everyone should understand, and I am aware that that might not necessarily be the case. So what I am going to do is I am going to offer the opportunity to ask any questions. So if I've perked up anybody's ears and anyone has any questions and would like to ask them, if you would like to just pop your hand up, and I'll ask you to unmute, and then you can ask your question. Or if you'd like to pop it in the chat box, we can go from there. I'll open up the chat box now to see if there's anything in there that I've missed. I can see Karen is waving at me. I know that not a lot of people are familiar with Zoom, so if you wanted to raise your hand, it's a case of going to the bottom of your screen. There is a more option with 3 little horizontal dots. Then there should be an option for reactions, and then there's a raise your hand button under that. But Karen, you've given me a wave and I can see you on the screen. So do you want to unmute and then ask your question? Is that okay?
That's fine. I still can't see if I can do it electronically, so I just do
it's okay. It's best. Yeah.
Can I just, so basically, for us, you pay for all the training.
Yes.
As an RDC, which we are as well, we can get involved in the level 2 part of it or anything else on a collaborative basis.
Yeah, so what we'll be doing is we will be recommending that the apprentice gets the level 2 training in their area. We are based in Yorkshire, so we don't expect people to come to us to deliver that, and that would be very rude of us to do, really. We wouldn't really want to do that. We don't want to make it a monopoly. We want to offer everyone the opportunity to get involved in the delivery. So yes, and what we will do is we will provide the funding for that, up to £500, the same as the current grant that's offered by the Department for Transport, towards the cost of that for anyone. And I'm happy for the employer to choose the RDC they want to go with to deliver the level 2 training.
Super, thank you. Then there's this £3,000 grant for taking on an apprentice. And how much do we have to pay an apprentice? What's an apprentice salary? Or is there a minimum?
Yes, off the top of my head, I can't tell you the exact figure, but if you typed into Google, what do I have to pay an apprentice? It will come up straight away. Okay. There is a link on the presentation, I think, when I send it out, that should take you directly there. And if there isn't, I will add it anyway, so you have it. But yeah, it's on the government website. It's just a legislation thing. So all you need to do is just Google it and it'll tell you. Okay.
Thank you. Then that just leads me on to my last question, or maybe it's, I mean, we actually do employ some of our instructors. So we have employed instructors and freelance ones. So that doesn't worry me. What kind of worries me a little bit more is the 12-month employment of them, because I think, in common with a lot of people, we're very busy in school term time, and most of our employed instructors are term time only, or some sort of equivalent of that. So to actually employ somebody 12 months a year just needs that, you need to get what they're going to be doing for sort of 2.5, 3 months of it.
Yeah, and I completely understand that, and that should be one of the challenges on the slide, if I'm honest. That's where the £3,000 grant might help slightly, because that might help pay for their time when they're not directly delivering Bikeability on your behalf. I know there are some cycle training providers who offer community projects or work with councils, etc. So that shouldn't be too much of a problem for them. But I do appreciate right now that that is a problem for anyone who's only delivering funded bikeability in schools.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure most of us do sort of holiday courses and all sorts of things, but not as much as that. I think that's, you know, it is weighted towards that. I'd say just need to get our heads around that. And therefore maybe looking at sort of mechanic training as well, which is much more of a 12-month business as well. Have you considered kind of City and Guilds or SciTech training, which I think would be very attractive to some of the young people as well as part of the apprenticeship.
We're looking at as much as we possibly can. Like I said, we've only got the funding to stretch so far, or we'll only stretch so far. So we're looking at as many options as we possibly can. We want to make these young people, or not necessarily just young people, but we want to make them as employable and as useful to the employers as we possibly can. So we're looking at all options, like I said, cycle maintenance, ride leaders, that kind of stuff that can make them. But yeah, if anyone has any suggestions of stuff that is important or would be really useful to consider, I'm open to those ideas, and feel free to email them through to me so I can take a little look in more detail.
Super.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
brilliant. Now, I'm not sure who popped up their hand next, but I've got three. So I'm going to start with Leah because you're on the left of my screen. I'm going to go left to right. So Leah, if you don't mind, that's perfect.
Sorry, can you just repeat the timeframes for the £3,000 grant, please? I missed the dates.
I can, yeah, no problem. So to be eligible for the £3,000 grant, the person has to be employed between the 1st of October, which we know has already passed, and the 31st of January 2022. Okay. Now they can start their apprenticeship all the way up until May, but they need to have an employment contract before the 31st of January. And I know that again is a problem because Christmas is coming around and recruitment is not easy and it does take time. But unfortunately, we have a time constraint from the government. There isn't anything we can do with that. It's just stipulated by the government. Hopefully, it will get extended. It was previously April this year to the 31st of September this year, and the government extended it until January. So we're fingers crossed they will extend it again, but I can't guarantee that that's going to be the case. So I wouldn't want to promise anyone that that's the case. Does that make sense, Leah?
Yes. And then my second question was, you know, the online employer training that you were talking about, is there a maximum that a training provider can send on to the training, or does it have to be the line manager? So for example, I'm the coordinator of our sort of cycle program, so in terms of daily runnings, they'll probably have more, they'll deal with me more, but will the line manager have to go instead of me? Does that make sense?
It does. No, not necessarily, Leah. So the employer induction will be for the person who is the employer or responsible for employment. So all we'll do is we'll induct them on how the apprenticeship will work. You guys have got a lot of the information already, and then we need to get some important documentation signed off. Then if anyone wants to help on the delivery, so if that's what you're referring to for RDC, we're happy to train a number of people as long as they're going to actually contribute towards the delivery, and they've got the right qualifications in place. So they've got their tutor and assessor's qualifications. Does that answer the question, Leah, or not?
Yeah, we're not RC.
RDC, okay, yeah, and if Leah, just to give you a heads up, so if someone else is going to be directly overseen, so if you're going to pair your apprentice with a mentor, what will happen is the apprentice will have to go through reviews every 2 months. So we will do that review with their mentor because they're going to see them day to day, and that's going to be the most useful, if that makes sense.
Right, okay. Yeah, cool, thank you.
Brilliant. Kate, I think you were next, if you don't mind just unmuting.
Okay, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Sorry if this might sound like a very sort of simplistic question, but you said you download £6,000 worth of funding for each apprentice. Is that what is used to pay the apprentice, or because we're a training provider, is the training provider expected to pay the apprentice?
Yes, they are. So the employing organisation pays the apprentice. Okay, the government provide the £6,000 to we call them an RDC. Sorry, I use different terminology because I work in a slightly different industry. So they pay the RDC to provide free training for the apprentice. So it's not to pay the apprentice to do their work; it's free training for them to get their apprenticeship. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Because well, I don't know if I've got the wrong end of the stick here, but if we've got a Bikeability course of, say, 18 children, we get funding from Bikeability of £45 per child.
Yeah.
But that only covers the cost of 3 instructors.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't really got anything left to pay an apprentice.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's why what we're going to do is front load the level 2 to get them working as soon as we possibly can. So we want to get them to the task 11 on the level 2 within the first 2 to 3 months, so that they can be utilized as a member of staff, so that you don't have to send them additionally, which is why the incentive right now is great for employers, because that'll hopefully cover the cost of the first 3 to 4 months of their wage while you're not able to draw down funding for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sorry. So what covers that for that 1 to 3 months? Sorry.
Yeah, so the £3,000 incentive that the government provide the employer for employing a young person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, covers the first.
Yeah, so you can use it for what you want, Kate. It doesn't necessarily have to cover the wages for the first 3 months, but it does, if that makes sense. So in fact, it will cover longer than that. It'll probably cover, on an apprenticeship wage, it'll probably cover like 5 to 6 months of wages. So that means when you're not able to utilize them individually to deliver independently, their wage is covered, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it would have to, because again, we don't really do anything.
No, I appreciate that.
In the
yeah.
6-week term, if I'm employing somebody,
yes,
I've got to pay them.
Yeah.
Because we don't get any other funding other than what Bikeability give us.
Yeah, and I understand that. Yeah.
So all my instructors are freelance.
Yeah.
Because we can't afford to pay the staffing costs and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we put it as one of the main challenges for the industry, because we appreciate that the funding for Bikeability is tight as it is. There's not a lot of maneuver. We know that, which is why it is a significant problem for the industry. But we've introduced this to try and help the best we can.
Yeah.
The incentive is there to help employers the best it possibly can. Like I said, fingers crossed, the government will find it in their heart to continue or push the incentive further, so that we can take it into further into next year. But as of right now, like I said, I can't promise that. I can only go with what's been released from the government. So that is something you as an employer will have to consider, the risk, etc., of employing somebody.
Yeah, which looks quite big for me at the moment.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
No problem. Jan, I think you're next.
Yeah, hi Rob. I've clicked on the right things here.
You are. I can hear you nice and clear.
I'm trying to see if I can see you, but I can't.
I can see you now. So
yeah, you can't see me, but anyway, I can't do that. So sorry about that. But oh yeah, there you go. There's 2 parts of my question. I've already put up a question in the chat there, but maybe I could just ask you verbally.
Please, if you don't mind. Yeah, that might be easier for me.
I am a registered Bikeability provider. I'm self-employed. I've got my own business there. I've also set up a social enterprise working with other people. My daughter's 19 years old and she's currently doing an outdoor activities course, and it would just be perfect for her if I could offer her an apprenticeship. Do you think that is just inappropriate that she's my daughter, or is it a non-starter? Because I'm not even bothering.
Yeah, there are no rules around putting your members of the family on apprentices that I'm aware of, as long as they're employed the same as anybody else would be. Absolutely. There's nothing stopping you employing a member of your family, so there's nothing stopping you putting them through an apprenticeship.
All right, okay. And the other bit of the question probably should have come first, actually. Sorry, I missed the start of this, so you may have already answered it. But I'm not the Bikeability provider in Northumberland that has the school's contract. I haven't got the resource to do that, but I do other things. I've done other contracts like adult cycle training, young people's sort of brownie stuff. It's all based on Bikeability, and I just wonder whether we'd still be eligible for that, or is it just aimed at the Bikeability provider that's got the school's contract?
I assume you would be, Jan. I don't think there's a reason why you wouldn't be, but leave it with me, and if there is a problem, I can get back to you. Is that okay? I've got your email address when you registered. I can't see there being a direct issue, but I better check just in case.
Yeah, because you can't actually get an instructors paid for unless you've got the contract. That contract. So if it's the same rule, then it's not going to happen. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for your help, Rob.
No problem. I think that was our last hand. I can't see any more hands. I'll have a quick flick through the chat box.
Rob, I noted some down for you if you want me to just tell you.
Yeah, Jodie, if you don't mind, that'll be easier. Yeah.
I've noted down Jan's, but you've answered that now, so that's cool. Lindsay is saying that it would be really useful if the apprentice could be trained to deliver Bikeability Plus. And then just put i.e. fixed parents, balance. Oh, sorry, wait a second.
Yeah, I can just see it, Jodie. Yeah, could that be considered? I would say yes. I feel, Lindsay, in agreement that it would be useful. Especially for those people who've got a small concern about what their apprentice is going to do through the holidays, etc. So I will definitely consider that and add it to my growing list of things to consider to add to the apprenticeship. Hopefully that answered the question.
That was the only one that I noted, and Leah's just put another one up there for you just to say, would they need to be on a 30-hour-a-week contract?
No, not necessarily. So we say full-time contract. For someone to be classed as a full-time employee and get their apprenticeship done in the time frame that we're expecting, they need to be employed for 30 hours a week plus, which might help slightly, because I know Bikeability delivered over 25 hours a week normally, so I know that's not a great deal of additional time. But
Kate's asking what E&D training is.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I have abbreviated every now and again. So E&D is just equality and diversity training, so making people aware of equal opportunities, etc. So that's one of the government's hot topics. So equality and diversity, safeguarding, health and safety, first aid, prevent, that kind of training. That's really important to the government that people generate and develop knowledge of. So we will be making all apprentices aware of equality and diversity and how to provide inclusive environments, etc.
That's
Mark
all I can see for now.
or Kate, I can see a hand back up. Is that a hand that is still up, or is that a new hand?
It's a new hand.
Great.
Sorry.
No, hit me.
Is there any difference then between the apprenticeship training and the First for Sport NSI course that people are doing?
Oh, you mean the new level 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, the new level 2 is the same as the level 2 that everyone is required to do as part of the apprenticeship. Does that make sense? So they do that
4-day course.
Yes,
right,
as part of it. Yeah, like I said earlier, we're going to try and squeeze that in as early in the program as we possibly can to aim to get the apprentice up to task 11 within the first 2 to 3 months, so that employers can start using them as a member of the team and can draw down funding for them.
Right. So this is where you would get the £500 burst, or
yeah, so equivalent. So that's what we're going to do. I know that grant recipients have been offered a certain amount of bursary money to allocate to people to deliver on funded Bikeability. We're going to match that because what we don't want to do is draw down government funding for apprenticeship and then draw money from the Department for Transport to then fund in another part of the programme. We're just going to use the apprenticeship funding and then I say we'll offer the same £500 towards it. So if someone wants to go with an RDC who is charging £800, the employer is going to have to consider making up the rest of that £300 or whatever it might be, just as they would if they were drawing down the bursary fund from the DFT.
Lovely. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Mark, I think you were next.
Yeah, so it was really on sort of related points to what some other people have been saying. So yeah, it's great that you're front loading the online level 2 course so that obviously we can get people getting active quickly on the job. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's a 15-month period that the apprentice is running for, the apprenticeship runs for. So yeah, I mean, I think, and especially within the £6,000 that you guys are getting funding, I think surely there's a way to cover things like the balanced biking, Bikeability Balance and other Bikeability Plus modules there, because at the moment there's actually a limited scope, a limited range of CPD for instructors. So actually it's a great opportunity for you guys as part of the apprenticeship program to develop that. If I want to send somebody off to learn how to do delivery Bikeability Balance, there's very limited options to do that, and we've got plenty of experience to deliver that in-house. But I can see how perhaps other providers that haven't done very much of that and are thinking I'd love to get doing it. Well, the CPD courses could be there. So for you guys to deliver that as part of the apprenticeship scheme, it's a great opportunity for you or other RDCs that are involved to trial that, and then you can be rolling it out to the rest of the industry as well, not just balancing the plus modules and further level 3 delivery and stuff like that. You know, at the moment, the level 2 cycle instructor course doesn't cover an awful lot of level 3 bikeability delivery. So, you know, I would like to see more of that, because that's the area that the government and the trust are pushing us to expand on. But getting the instructors experienced in it is challenging in itself.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And what we are going to do, like I said, we're working quite closely with the Bikeability Trust in communication most weeks, to try and create the most balanced and well-rounded program to make these people as employable as possible. So we are considering all options and trying to get as much crammed into the program as we can. We obviously have to consider time as well, because what these employers aren't going to want to do is release their members of staff for 3, 4, 5 days here and then another 3, 4, 5 days elsewhere to do this training. Although the training will be useful, they're also going to want to use them, and we don't want to ram too much in there, because the level 2 community activator coach apprenticeship standard is a big qualification in itself in terms of the work that they're going to have to complete to pass successfully. But please be assured that we are doing our best to add as much of that additional stuff in there as we can. And again, we're welcoming as many ideas as possible, so we can try and create that big jigsaw puzzle and get as many pieces in place as we can. Does
Super.
that make sense? No problem. Leah, I think, unless that's still a previous hand.
No, it's a new hand.
No problem.
For the community activator qualification, how many hours a week do you recommend that they sort of dedicate to that?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is they have to do an online session with their tutor every 2 weeks for 2 hours, and then they're probably going to have to do somewhere around 2 to 3 hours a week towards completing work for their qualification. So whether that's done in the additional time, so we said to employ an apprentice, they're going to need to be employed full time, so they're going to have to be employed for 30 hours plus a week. If they're delivering Bikeability to 25, that gives you an additional 5 hours. Whether that, I know that doesn't work out exactly like that, because finishing at 3 isn't perfect timing for getting anything else done, but it might be that they do an hour in an evening after they finish their Bikeability, or half an hour an evening, so that they can get through their apprenticeship work and they're not starting to fall behind. But I'm saying to make sure that they keep on top of the work that there's required within the apprenticeship standard, 2 to 3 hours a week is going to be necessary.
And then a 2-hour online session
every 2 weeks. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you.
No problem. Jodie, were there any more questions that you noticed pop up, or?
Yeah, there was just one more. Karen's just asking, have you conducted any research with young people to see if cycle instructing is something of interest to them?
Yeah, if I'm honest, Karen, we haven't done a great deal of research. What we're doing, like I said, we're working with the Bikeability Trust to try and come up with as many routes to promote the program as possible. There's been no real official research done, so I wouldn't like to tell you there has, but what we do have is we have a big network of people. First Step Training have a big network of people who register inquiries quite regularly about doing apprenticeships, etc. So we will be looking, but what we don't want to do is just say that this is only for young people. I know I mentioned a couple of times that we're trying to diversify the workforce, make it a little bit younger, etc. But you don't necessarily have to be a young person to go on apprenticeship, and I know I haven't covered that, but this apprenticeship funding and the incentive of £3,000 will cover training for anyone of any age, and they don't necessarily have to be younger. We just often stereotypically think of an apprentice as a young person. They don't necessarily have to be, just to make that clear to everybody. Hopefully that helps, Karen. If you've got any ideas on research we could conduct, I'm more than happy to do it. I know we're limited on time, but we're going to do all we possibly can. Mark, yeah, most of his team are in their 20s, one is 18, so that's great. And I know different types of cycle training providers will have different demographics. Our cycle training provider that we have that works for First Step, we are a sports coaching company as a whole, so a lot of our people are young people and work across both parts of the company. But I also know that some cycle training providers are predominantly made of people who are age 30 plus. Like I said, we're going to be as inclusive as possible. There's no real reason to limit this apprenticeship to just young people. But yeah, when we're trying to diversify the workforce, we are trying to introduce young people. So if you can come up, or if you have any ideas of ways of reaching young people, then we'll try that. But hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Are there any other questions? Felix,
yes,
sorry,
please.
go on. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so someone mentioned earlier about the hours they might have to put in to work towards the level 2's community activator.
That's right, yeah.
Qualification. So might be quite an obvious question, but good to ask anyway. Is that supposed to be outside of the employment hours?
No, it's within. So it's called off the job training, Felix. So they're supposed to be allocated, or they're required to be allocated time each week whilst at work to do their apprenticeship work. That's why the government are providing the funding. So with it, so you can't ask them to do it 6 till 9 on a night time, basically, unless that's their registered working hours.
Yes, sure.
Brilliant.
Yeah, very useful. Thank you.
No problem. Any other hands or any other questions in the chat box that I've potentially missed?
Can't see anything else in the chat box, Rob, just now.
Brilliant. One last option or opportunity for anyone to ask any questions. Like I said at the start, we've recorded the session. It will be going to the Bikeability Trust to add to their YouTube channel. So if you know of anybody who would like to review it, or anyone who's missed, like I said, we were expecting, or there was quite a lot of registrations. So it will be available for people to review. What I will do is probably Monday now, because I'm off Thursday, Friday, as I will follow up with everyone who's attended, just send out the presentation and a little bit of more information so that you have it to hand, and then we can go from there. Lucy, did you have any questions or anything else to bring up before we finish?
No, thanks very much. That was
fantastic.
Yeah, no, thanks. It was really interesting. It's great to see people here. I know there's still challenges for everyone, but yeah, let's hope we can get some more people in. But I suppose the other thing, isn't it, Rob, is that people can come to you, and we've got on the website we've got your details on the website. So if anyone's got any queries as well as they come in, that you guys are happy to, as the experts, are happy to kind of provide that information.
Exactly. We'll do our very best to answer as many questions as we can, as quickly as we possibly can. Like I say, I know that presentations like this often throw up more questions once you've left and you've had time to think about it. So just get in touch with me as if and when you have a question. Like I said, I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate it's not going to work for everybody. It's the same as an apprenticeship in any industry. It doesn't work for every employer, but even if we can help a few employers and generate some new exciting members of our cycle instructors to deliver on bikeability, then at least we've done a job and we've helped some people. So if there are no more questions, we'll finish up there. I'll say good evening to everybody and go enjoy the rest of your night, and welcome any questions in the future. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. See you.
And
Bye.
speak to you soon. Bye now.